This is reminder. Don't ever eat Izuku Midoriya's cake again. By Pommy_That_Writing Pomeranian. Read by Satori Reed. Summary. Well, someone ate my cake. Izuku yelled, the only voice heard in a room of 16. He quickly turned to Sero, pointing his finger at him. What about you? I'm guessing you don't know either? The boy was quickly cut off by Izuku. He mocked. Just stop. Which one of you assholes ate my cake? The cake that I labeled in marker with my name, which you couldn't even wipe off correctly, for God's sake. Featuring, someone eats Izuku's cake, Mina, and the class finds out what true fear is. Izuku goes feral over his cake. Izuku hummed, softly singing as he shuffled through the papers all over his desk. After class let out, Izuku rushed to his room and got straight to work. He'd been speeding through his worksheets, nodding his head in the beat to the music blasting through his headphones. His hand was starting to cramp up, and his back was in agony after being hunched over in his non-padded desk chair for the past 3 hours. He wasn't done yet, but a break was needed. Sliding his headphones off his head, he placed them on the table in front of him. Afterward, Izuku leaned back, bending over the surface of his desk chair. He waited for a crack to echo in the room. A tingling feeling washed over his body as his blood flow corrected itself, and the feeling came back into his lower back and legs. Stretching his arms over his head, his shoulders let out pop, and he stood up from his chair. His legs felt like jello under his weight as he walked over to his neatly done bedding and laid over his blanket. The cold surface bleached through his clothing, causing goosebumps to cover his body. Izuku used this moment to do another full body stretch. Reaching his arms over his head, he strained his legs and felt a series of satisfying pops as his whole spine cracked. He let his body relax and threw an arm over his face. Orange light from the setting sun peeked through the curtains and into the room, casting the room in a warm, late afternoon glow. He soaked in the sun and just laid unmoving on his bed for a moment. He really didn't want to get up, but all he could think about was how much he wanted some of the 5-layer chocolate Oreo cake that should have been in the fridge, leftovers from Sato Creative Baking yesterday. He had a few slices when the cake was first presented to the class. He was in heaven with every mouthful. The godsend cake was going fast though. With a class full of 20, Izuku knew it wouldn't last a night in the dorms. So he did what any sane person would do. He cut himself 3 slices of cake and tucked them away in a Tupperware. He wrote his full name written in bold print over the lid for anyone who noticed the squished cake in the fridge, claiming it as his. While normally Izuku would never be that selfish, this was different. Izuku is known for his extreme sweet tooth in the class, as any sweets near him were normally gone in seconds. He was the go-to taste tester for Sato, and even Kachan sometimes. When they wanted someone's opinion on a new recipe they were playing with, he was the first to be called down to try a piece. This was a 5-layer chocolate Oreo cake. 5 layers. Filled with chocolate and idea goodness. Izuku wasn't going to just take 1 slice and be left wanting more. No, it was easier to take 3 slices so he could have his fill and everyone else could split the rest. It wasn't too bad. It was a lot of cake after all. He barely made a dent in the mountain with his slices. With that being said, he propped himself up from his bed and made his way to the door. He wanted cake so badly right now. Rushing down the hallways to the stairwell, he went down 2 steps at a time, towards the first floor. Once he reached the final landing, he speed-walked towards the kitchen. Noting the large group of his classmates bunching around the couches in the living room, he grabbed at the doorway and used it to swing himself into the kitchen. His socks on the smooth tiled floor caused him to slide into a counter. He struggled to stop, bracing for impact. Slamming into the surface, Izuku stopped and looked around to see if anyone was witness to his accident. With a quick glance around, seeing no one present in the kitchen, Izuku quickly made his way to the fridge. He would just quickly grab his Tupperware and sit with everyone in the living room. Some socializing would be good for him after being locked away for 3 hours. Yanking at the handle, Izuku pulled the door open and let the cool air hit his face as he crouched down to look at the last place he saw his glass plate. He humped in confusion after not being able to find his plate right off the bat. Moving some things around, He let his knees hit the floor so he could have better balance while removing some items from the shelves. Maybe it was hidden behind something? He was growing frustrated when he couldn't find his plate after a minute of looking. It really wouldn't be hard to miss. A glass, see-through container filled with chocolate cake. His name in black erase marker written on top. Not only that, but there was a lot of cake, so Izuku used one of the bigger containers to hold it in. It really wasn't hard to miss, so the fact that he couldn't find it was very strange. Standing up, Izuku frowned at the mess in front of the fridge. He really took everything out and laid it all on the floor and countertops, and still no cake. He quickly shoved the items away, back in the fridge, and slammed the door shut with a loud bang. Some items shook from impact, the sound of glass bottles clinging together, and some items falling in the fridge was ignored by Izuku as he looked around. Maybe someone took it out? It was a big container after all. It took up a lot of space. He glanced over the countertop and even opened the garbage lid. Nothing. Thank God it wasn't in the garbage though. Izuku would have really lost it then. Not that he wasn't already losing it, but that would have been just a pure waste of food. He was gonna leave the kitchen to ask around for the missing cake, but in the corner of his eye, barely noticeable, tucked away behind some bread and bags of chips, was the corner of a glass container. It was probably not what he was looking for. Kirishima probably ripped open another bag of chips, destroying the bag in the process, and dumped the remains in a container for safekeeping. It wasn't too out of the normal, since it happened with almost every other bag. There was something about it, though, tucked away, hidden from plain sight. Something in his gut told him, check it. Go over and check that container. So he did. Izuku walked over and pushed the bags aside. What laid in front of him was a clean glass Tupperware, the same size as the one he used, with almost visible markings of the black marker in the lid. The word Zu-ida was left over on the lid, someone probably being unable to clean the marker completely off. He reached for the container and brought it closer to him to inspect. He rubbed the markings with his thumb and watched as the black words were wiped away, leaving a residue on his skin. It's like they didn't even try. Izuku unclipped the lid and opened the container, still wet inside. He lifted the regulated glassware to his face and smelled the inside. The smell of their mint dish soap hit his face, but after, the scent of chocolate cake was hard to miss. Someone ate my cake and tried to hide the fact that they did. The rage Izuku felt in that moment of realization hit him hard. His mind blanked and he slammed the bowl onto the marble counter. He's lucky he didn't use any real strength or the glass would have completely shattered in his hands on impact. That didn't stop a single crack from forming on the glass bottom though. Who the fuck ate my cake? Izuku made his way to the entrance of the kitchen. He stood in the doorway and watched as his classmates talked and giggled in the living room. No one heard his question, so to help get his classmates' attention, he used his fist and banged on the wooden table next to the doorway, hard. The fruit bowl that sat on top rattled, and, as expected, everyone quickly stopped talking and looked at him in question, curious as to what he was doing. Izuku glared on at the group, taking a steady breath, really trying to calm himself before he spoke. He opened his mouth, ready to ask again, but he was interrupted by multiple people before he got the chance. Are you alright, Deku? Uraraka, sweet, innocent Uraraka. Izuku really values her friendship. You good, man? Kaminari. Even though he is very energetic, Izuku is always in a better mood around him. Midoriya, you alright? The sunshine child himself, Kirishima. Sometimes, Izuku just walks next to him, and he can feel himself open up like a sunflower in the sun. Speak the fuck up, Deku. A little harsh, but Kachan is the same as always. What's wrong, Midoriya? And then the sometimes very, very dense Todoroki. His dry comments really brighten up a room. All these people who Izuku cares about. People he would risk his life for, and who would do the same for him. He loves every single one of them. He holds up a hand to silence them. Kachan, always the loudest, took offense to that. I know you did not just... He quickly cuts himself off, after Izuku shoots him a glare. He pales and looks away, taking his head between his shoulders slightly. trying to hide. Anyone who noticed him gasped, looking between the two teens, their mouths open in shock. Izuku hummed in appreciation, and with a slight smile he spoke. Who the fuck ate my cake that was in the fridge? Several faces paled. No one responded, so Izuku tried again, louder. I guess I wasn't loud enough the first time. Who the fuck ate my cake? 5 pale faces averted their eyes, while others looked amused. Focusing his attention on the obvious suspect, Izuku started his questioning. Kiri, do you know who ate my cake? The boy in question tried to hide behind people, but was quickly pushed into the spotlight. Man, I don't... What cake? Okay then. Without answering, Izuku moved on to another suspect. Kami. The boy stiffened up, back straightening in his spot on the couch. Yes? My cake. My plate of chocolate Oreo cake that was in the fridge. It's gone. Do you know who ate it and left the container empty and hidden behind the bags of chips? Sorry, man, I don't know about any... Izuku's glare sharpened, and Kaminari flinched. I swear, I don't know who ate your cake. Izuku took a step forward, and watched as people took a few steps backwards, some tripping and falling over each other in their hurry to gain some space between themselves and Izuku. Well, someone ate my cake, Izuku yelled, the only voice heard in a room of 16. He quickly turned to Sero, pointing his finger at him. What about you? I'm guessing you don't know either? The boy was quickly cut off by Izuku. He mocked. Just stop. Which one of you assholes ate my cake? The cake that I labeled in marker with my name, which you couldn't even wipe off correctly for God's sake. It was quiet for a moment, before someone spoke loudly. It was me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but that cake was so good. There was no more, and I saw the plate, and I thought that I'll just eat a spoonful or two, but then I ate the whole thing. I panicked, and I hit the container. I know it was wrong on me. I should have told you. I'm sorry, Midoriya. Izuku stared at Ashido as she confessed in her sin. He just stares at her long after she finished, so she tried again. Midoriya, did you hear me? I said, no. I heard you the first time. Izuku flared up his quirk, and quickly tried to tackle the girl. He was grabbed by a ready Katsuki before he could get anywhere near the girl. Kirishima and Shoji also quickly made their way towards a screaming Izuku as others went to Ashido, standing in front of her with their arms out, ready to stop Izuku. Kicking his legs, he screamed out, Let me go! Gachon, let me go! She ate my cake! Oh, that bitch! That bitch ate the last piece! It had my name on it! Katsuki grunted in his ear, struggling to hold onto the wiggling body. Quit your screaming, shithead! You're on her side? He screeched. Kirishima tried to grab at his arms, but he was stopped short as Izuku kicked the leg and his unhardened gut. He choked on his breath and stumbled back, bent over, holding his stomach. I'm sorry. No, you're not, you fucking bitch! The struggle lasted for another minute before ding sounded around the room. Everyone just froze in place as Sato made his way out of the elevator. He was scrolling through his phone, but looked up at the sudden silence. What's up, guys? He started to a stop at the sign in front of him. Izuku, with Katsuki's arms wrapped around his stomach. Kirishima on the floor, one hand grabbing at Izuku's leg that was mid-kick. Shoji stands off to the side in panic. Then, in the middle of the room, stood Todoroki, mid-step, as he made his way towards Izuku, his arms spread apart, reaching out to grab any limb Izuku was about to send his way. Then, behind him stood the rest of the class, Ashido crying in the middle of a Baraka, Kaminari, Sero, and Ida who circles in front of her, protecting her from a raging Izuku, while trying to speak over the screaming in an attempt to calm him. Others stood behind the girl, Momo looking unworried, and Jiro was chewing on popcorn, watching the scene play out. Hagakurai sat next to Jiro, with her phone in hand, recording the whole thing since Izuku first slid into the kitchen. What's happening? Then everyone was speaking at once. Words were overlapped, and it was just a jumbled mess. The kicking resumes, and Kirishima gets a foot to the face, not paying attention. Katsuki barked out a laugh, and in that moment of weakness, Katsuki loosened his grip on Izuku, and the boy elbows the blonde's face. Curses filled the air, and Izuku was let go. He ran forward, knocking Todoroki over, before slamming through the bodyguard and tackling Ashido to the floor. The pair fell over, Ashido screaming bloody murder on the way down, and Izuku screeching incoherently, completely fell on top of the How could you? I said I was sorry! Uraka and Todoroki, he had gotten up after being knocked over, grabbed at Izuku, who scratched and clawed at Ashido. The group all screamed as Sato made his way towards Shoji, who stood next to a cursing Katsuki, holding his face in a groaning Kirishima. Why is this happening? Ashido ate Midoriya's cake that he saved from yesterday. Oh. Sato looked at the scene in front of him. Should I make more? Izuku froze, someone hearing the words and looking over his shoulder. Todoroki took this moment to pull him off, and Izuku led him. He stood, each arm held by a classmate, and tilted his head at Sato innocently. You well? Sure. Beaming, Izuku pulled his arms away and grabbed his phone from his pocket. Awesome, there's this recipe I wanted you to try. It sounds so good. The pair walked into the kitchen. Everyone just watched silently as Izuku walked out of view. Kaminari was the first to speak up again. What the fuck just happened? Katsuki glanced up from the spot, nose bright red. Don't do that shit again. Never fucking eat the nerd's cake. Everyone nodded in return as Ashido slumped against the floor, exhausted. I thought I was going to die. Izuku peeked his head over the doorway, and with a smile, he stared Ashido in the eyes as he spoke. You were! Before walking away. So that was reminder, don't ever eat Izuku Midoriya's cake again. I really hope you liked this fanfic. I really did. This was a recommendation by a viewer, so if you want to leave a recommendation as well, you 100% can in the comments, and I will be sure to look at it. Also, sorry for not posting. However, I have a lot of stuff going on in my life, but I hope I will be able to do some fics more frequently. Also, thank you so much for the support. My channel has been growing way more than I ever thought. And yeah, see you soon. Bye bye.